And now we will jump into the panel discussions. Actually, we have 3 panel discussions lined up. Let me introduce our first panel. The first panelist is Mr. Tahir Faruqi, General Manager, Origination, Shell LNG Marketing and Trading, Shell. Ms. Yao Yumiko, Executive Officer, Senior General Manager of LNG Business Department, Energy Trading Company, Tokyo Gas Company Limited. Mr. Paramate Hoijanwan, Advisor, ESCOPE. Mr. Nishizawa Hitoshi, Senior Vice President, LNG Division, JERA. And last but not the least, I'm honored to introduce Mr. Matthew Baldwin, Deputy Director General for Energy at the European Commission. To kick off the session, we would like to welcome Mr. Akos Loss, Lead Gas Analyst, International Energy Agency, as a moderator of the first panel discussion. Please refer to the handout or go to our website to know more about our panelists and the moderator. Okay, Mr. Loss, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first panel discussion of the day, where we are going to talk about public and private efforts to enhance gas security and the role of gas reserve mechanisms. My name is Akos Loss, and I'm the lead gas analyst at the IEA. And I'm very pleased to be joined by an exceptionally distinguished panel to discuss these very important issues. The global gas market is finally transitioning from a period of crisis to a period of abundance. But we are far from being there yet. And even if we get there eventually, I think it will not be a time to relax about gas supply security, because the structural lower gas market flexibility that we have after the crisis will probably stay with us for a long time, and so will the greater risk to gas and LNG security. So let me turn to Mr. Baldwin first, because he's coming to us straight from the trenches. The European Union has just gone through the worst gas supply shock in modern gas market history, and Mr. Baldwin's team actually was at the forefront of the crisis response at the EU level. And the European Commission and its member states have put in place a very impressive set of measures to deal with the crisis. And now, after more than 2.5 years, I think we have some perspective to reflect on the European experience with the crisis management. So what are the lessons so far, and which of those lessons could be applicable, not just in Europe, but maybe in other parts of the world, including in Asia? Mr. Baldwin, over to you.
Well, thank you very much. I think as to ask the question about the lessons learned, as a Chinese revolutionary leader said about the impact of the French Revolution on the Chinese Revolution, he said it's too early to say. And that remains, I think, the case a bit now with this ongoing situation. But briefly to tell you what we've done, we have a framework which dates to 2017, which gives the EU and within that member states a number of different options and tools to use to ensure security of gas supply. Risk identification and prevention. So member states identify what preventive and emergency measures to include in their action plans and emergency plans. And then these are then triggered by the seriousness of the disruption to security of supply, and they can declare different levels of alert. Then the measures can be market-based, i.e. relying on the actions of companies or using market mechanisms, such as gas storage obligations, supply obligations for protected customers, or indeed they can be non-market-based, demand measures, load shedding, and so on. And of course, during the crisis, we used a combination of both. And it was a very unprecedented time. It was a very tough time, and I think we can be proud with what we achieved. But very briefly, of course, we reduced our demand by an average of 18% across the European Union. It was a stressful time for industry, but there was also some really structural demand reduction at the levels of households. And we, of course, use storage with a 90% filling obligation, which currently at 94% ahead of this winter, which proved to be generally very successful. And then last but not least, what we did was we came forward with new measures to look at potential steps towards joint purchasing, what we call aggregation of demand and a joint purchasing platform known as Aggregate EU, with the specific goal of trying to draw in new international suppliers, a number of you, of course, in this room. It was a marketplace-based solution. It wasn't about the Commission stepping and buying gas, and it did help, I think, smaller entities with less international experience to find suitable sellers to replace Russian gas. a valuable experience of how we can, I think, ensure continuity of our commercial activities and security of supply at times of crisis, and one which we're actually looking at for potentially for other commodities such as hydrogen and raw materials. Thank you.
Thank you for this very succinct summary. If I may follow up with you just very briefly. So we heard from Dr. Jürgen about conflicting priorities, and we see that the EU has structurally higher LNG requirements, so reaching out to suppliers to supply more LNG, but at the same time it's increasingly going after the methane emissions of LNG, for now only looking at stricter rules about reporting, measurement and verification, but potentially in the future also with penalties. So in your view, are those two priorities able to be aligned with each other? Are those consistent with each other?
Well, I mean, sometimes I'm often asked this question: is there a dichotomy between our climate ambitions and our reduction of gas and our sharp needs in the middle of the energy crisis? For me, there is no dichotomy. Indeed, when we launched what we call Repower EU, we stressed the need to renew, replace, and so on, the different mechanisms. We've increased our renewables, we've increased our levels of energy efficiency, and we've actually replaced a lot of the Russian gas that was coming in, notably, of course, with American LNG. And I don't see a dichotomy. We said in many, many conferences, we know we will need gas in our pipes all the way through 2049. It'll be smaller amounts of gas with no apology, and I hope over time it'll be cleaner amounts of gas. As Daniel Jürgen has just said, the market will loosen up, and we and Japan, and I hope other energy-consuming countries, will look together at how we can ensure that that gas is cleaner through lower methane and other associated emissions. So I don't see a dichotomy, and we want to be very earnest and frank and keep our discussions going with everybody, our partners in these producing countries, our partners across the supply chain, so that we can do this to best possible effect in terms of our dual missions of ensuring security and, of course, also the climate transition.
Thank you. Very important message there. So, apart from the heroic efforts by Mr. Baldwin's team at the European Commission, of course, LNG also contributed to the rescue of the European energy system. And actually, it played a very crucial part in filling the supply gap that opened up after the Russian supply cuts. But also, LNG came to Europe at an enormously high price and during the peak of the crisis, and in some cases, it actually came at the expense of the energy security of other LNG importers, especially in poor and developing countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh. So now we have Mr. Faruqi here from Shell, who represents the largest LNG portfolio player and one of the largest LNG supplier in the world. So Mr. Faruqi, let me ask you, what can LNG suppliers do to provide LNG securely, but also at an affordable price to their buyers?
Thank you for the question. I think it starts with demand for gas and LNG, right? So you need to first assess what's happening in the market. As was already highlighted, there is significant volatility in demand, not just due to price movements, but also because of regulatory changes and the geopolitical uncertainty that we experienced recently. It is important to note European demand had reached a peak in 2010s, but the Russian conflict created a shock where volumes jumped, basically doubling from 2018 levels. When you have such volatility in demand, it is a monumental task to figure out how to plan for and establish a base load of supply to meet that kind of volatility. When we look at suppliers, I look at Shell as a big supplier into this market, and I use that as an example. So Shell continues to believe in the growth of gas, and as a result, LNG, the overall supply to meet the growing needs for this demand in the world. Given Shell's portfolio, we continue to aspire to grow our LNG business by 20 to 30% by 2030, as compared to our 2022 levels. As you know, we run an integrated value chain from upstream to trading, which continues to offer strong value through enabling market optimization and trading flexibility that, in fact, enhances the security of supply for customers and enables the industry to grow, providing gas and LNG that the world needs. Of course, underpinning all of this is a substantial and deep relationship that the buyers and suppliers have amongst each other. This is key. Maybe to address your question, there are 3 areas of focus that Shell is looking at that can be, again, an example of what suppliers are looking to do to meet the needs. Number 1 is our upstream investments. We need to continue to grow and stabilize our gas supply for liquefaction. Here we have made investments, as an example, in upstream Trinidad and Tobago to improve the gas supply through the delivery of the Colibri and Barracuda projects. And we've also FID'd a new field development, Manatee. This will backfill supply for the Atlantic LNG project. We're also looking to further improve our utilization by bringing in more gas supply, and we intend to look to invest another $2 billion a year through to 2026 to enhance the supply into our liquefaction facilities. The second is increasing liquefaction production. Through our partners, we have FID'd 3 projects that we expect to bring new LNG to markets. One is LNG Canada, second is Ruwais in UAE with ADNOC, and then the third is the North Field East investment in Qatar. LNG Canada has been progressing and is now, I'm happy to say, 95% complete. We hope startup to be expected by sometime in 2025, and that brings 14 MTPA of new capacity. Ruwais is a 10% investment that adds just under 10 MTPA to the market, and NFE, we are a 25% investment in 4 mega trains that adds 32 MTPA of capacity. So you can see that there's still significant supply capacity being added. And the third area that we're looking at is third-party volumes, just to enhance our own capability. We have been a key player in underpinning third-party investments in the past, and we will look to continue to add more capacity. As an example, for this year, we hope to add Pavilion as part of our acquisition into our portfolio by next year, and that adds another 6.5 MTPA to the trading portfolio. So again, shoring up the capability in the portfolio to meet what has been very dynamic demand globally.
Thank you very much. And now, after the largest portfolio seller, let me now turn to the largest buyer in the world, JERA. We are fortunate to have Mr. Nishizawa here with us today, whose company is also increasingly operating as a portfolio player, but doing it from the buyer side. So, Mr. Nishizawa, the Japanese government implemented the strategic buffer LNG scheme last year, and JERA is the first designated buyer under this scheme. So what is your experience with the SBL scheme framework so far? And based on that experience, what more do you think could be done to improve LNG security in Asia?
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And I'm Hitoshi Nishizawa of JERA, and I'm really grateful for being here as a speaker on the panel on the LNG PCC. So I still remember my emotion that when actually the first LNG PCC meeting was held in 2012. It was a little after the great Eastern Japan earthquake, and everybody was working quite hard for securing the LNG in a very challenging manner. So for JERA as an energy utility in Japan, the issue of the securing gas security and ensuring the stable energy supply is the first and foremost important issue as an energy utility company in Japan. So accordingly, we have been making the various efforts for ensuring the gas security, but it is not something to be conducted by just a private company alone. So with the government initiatives and the cooperation and the collaboration between the government and private companies are essential, quite important. So this morning, among the many announcements by this NGPCC, the ceremonies by IEA to make the announcement about your 2-year work program. on the energy security matters, which is actually quite appreciated. And this should be quite important for METI and IEA work together on such a very important manner. So particularly, you talked about the voluntary gas reserve mechanism, which should be quite important. And the SBA matter you touched upon and asking me for talk about it can be a very good example of the such gas reserve mechanism. That's just what we think. So as for the gas reserve SBL framework, that is the as Aiko-san you mentioned, just the very important framework to secure energy supply, gas supply to Japan as a preparation for the risk of the supply disruption or emergency supply crunches. So that is the well-considered mechanism reflecting the increasingly complex and disparity of the international energy market, especially for the gas. In the framework, with the government support, including JOGMEC, private companies work on securing the SBL for the sake of the ensuring the stable energy supply. So in that framework, under the governmental support and initiative, private companies work on securing the SBL cargoes to avoid any interruption for the supply to Japan. And private companies secure such SBL using our capability for making the procurement. So, as you mentioned, this framework did establish in the last year, and JERA applied to work on this program in order to contribute to the energy security in Japan. And as a result, JERA was accredited as the authorized designated SBA supplier. So in this framework, our company does procure SBL cargo using our LNG portfolio. And if any emergency happens, like a sudden supply disruption or demand supply crunches, then we supply such secured LNG cargo, SBL cargo, to the utilities in Japan who suffers from such crunch. So that's a mechanism. And during the last winter, we secured one SBL cargo for each month during the winter season from December to February. And in the end, it was fortunate that we had a mild winter and no major supply disruption occurred. So in the end, there are no urgent requests for getting such dear cargo, which is actually a very good thing to see after such a very well-structured preparation. So for the coming winter as well, we aim to work for implementing the SBL structure in accordance with the METI plan for this winter. So while reflecting responding to your question, I talked about the SBL, but if I may, I'd like to talk about some other measures to ensure energy supply, energy security, because everything has been for ensuring the energy security. So we have been strengthening our integrated gas value chain. So by acquiring upstream and midstream assets like the LNG liquefaction plant or LNG fleet. We are building the stable and flexible gas supply system. Also, we are focused on enhancing our resilience to the circumstance changes and on mitigating risks by building a diverse portfolio, well-considered LNG portfolio that strategically balances the supply regions and contract terms and the contract timing as well. So also we are focusing on strengthening our flexibility and stability to ensure stable supply while adapting to the demand fluctuations. For example, we are working on strengthening and enhancing flexible contract like FOB, or removing the destination restrictions, and also enhancing LNG fleets. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the optimization of the LNG flow across the Pacific and Atlantic market by utilizing the extensive network and the trading capability of GLGM, which is the very important measure for ensuring the stable gas supply. Also, I'd like to talk about our effort to promote the international cooperation with not only international but also the domestic sense, but cooperation with the other players in terms of not only procurement only, but also some areas like utilization of the storage or LNG fleet, which can contribute to the energy security, not only in Japan, but also across the country. So those are the measures, but the important thing is those things cannot be implemented in an effective manner by the private sector alone. So it is very important to have the government initiative and the cooperation between the government sector and the private sector, such that we can have the fruitful and effective measure for improving the energy security. So JERA would like to continue on working on improving the energy security in cooperation with the government sector. So thank you very much. I will stop here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nishizawa, for this very comprehensive overview, not just on the SBL, but also on the other measures you're undertaking now. So with Ms. Yao from Tokyo Gas, we have another major Japanese LNG buyer represented here on the panel. And I think it is fair to say that Tokyo Gas's LNG needs are very well covered with long-term LNG contracts. And because of this, the company was much less impacted by the price shock in 2022 and 2023 than some European utilities, which were much more exposed to the spot market. So, Ms. Yao, let me ask you, is the solution really so simple? We just need to sign more long-term contracts? And in your experience, can these long-term contracts actually offer a good hedge against supply shocks and price volatility?
Thank you very much. I would like to first talk about how we can ensure the stable supply of energy, if it's okay. To secure supply investment and ensure price stability while supporting market growth, the role of importance of LNG and ensuring predictability is necessary. And it will be necessary to see the following 2 points addressed in the policy of international organizations and also in in individual countries. Some of you may attended the conference in Houston a few weeks ago, and I said exactly the same thing, but since this is important, I would like to say again. So the 2 points, one is a realistic and efficient energy transition from the current situation to decarbonization should be promoted. And for this purpose, the role of LNG will continue to be significant. These 2 points we would like to see in the international organizations and the policies of individual countries. And furthermore, it will be also important to continue to improve the liquidity of the LNG market and to expand the LNG market to enable optimization in response to changes in supply and demand. And as for Tokyo Gas, we are the largest city gas company in Japan, and we procure about 11 million tons of LNG per year, which we supply to our customer as city gas and electricity. And to procure competitive LNG prices, we have promoted 3 types of diversification. One is procurement sources. We diversified our procurement sources. And 2, flexible contracts, meaning diversifying the context of contracts, acquiring more options and flexibility. And 3, LNG networks, diversifying the LNG flow using our own fleet. And with this 3 diversification, we have secured a certain level of supply stability. And then Tokyo Gas procures LNG based on the long-term contracts. But to achieve a stable supply, while responding to the uncertainty of future demand, it is becoming increasingly important to have contracts with flexibility and options, and to collaborate with partners, both in Japan and other countries. And collaboration with partners include joint procurement and optimization of supply and demand fluctuations with a cooperative system by expanding the trading businesses. And just like Nishizawa-san from JERA also mentioned, by expanding the trading business with our own LNG fleet, we are increasing the flow of LNG to countries other than Japan. And this is also leading to a stronger emergency responsible capabilities.
Thank you very much. Now, of course, Japan is one of the most important markets for LNG still, but it's no longer a growth market. It's quite the opposite. It's a declining market. Luckily, we have Mr. Pramat Hoysungwan with us today from Thailand, who represents the ASEAN region and Southeast Asia through the ASEAN Council on Petroleum. Now, this region is very much in a growth phase, and it may well remain so for the foreseeable future. At the same time, the region is known to be very price sensitive, and we know that LNG supply security always comes at a price. So my question to you is this: can the Southeast Asian LNG importers actually afford to have some kind of a gas reserve mechanism? And if not, then what else can they do to improve their gas supply security?
All right. Thank you very much for a very good question on this. For the ASEAN, just give you some background that for the ASEAN is indeed diverse and generally price sensitive when it comes to the energy. So in the ASEAN region is made up of the diverse country with 10 member countries, and many of which are highly sensitive to the energy price. The GDP per capita in the ASEAN ranging from around $5,000 and up to $130,000. So you can see quite a big gap in this. And for the ASEAN, the average GDP is around $17,000. And currently, we have 7 country members, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, who have already the LNG import facility. And with the total import capacity around almost 60 million tons per annum, which is quite a big number. And for this point, I would like to make here that many ASEAN countries, especially for the developing ones, focus on keeping the energy costs quite low in order to support their growing economies. And setting up a gas reserve facilities require a lot of money for this huge investment, and which could hard for price-sensitive countries to manage. And in some countries, it's inevitably they may trade off between the energy security and the affordability. However, in some wealthier countries in ASEAN with a strong economy and more advanced industry might be able to afford this gas reserve mechanism because they value on the supply security. For smaller or the less developed countries, it might be difficult unless they get some support from maybe from the international organization or some of the partner with the LNG suppliers, such as the study on the possible gas reserve mechanism that can serve on the ASEAN purpose, or even some kind of the financial help or financial support, or even we can find the other option that than investing in their own gas reserve. One possible solution for the ASEAN is that the country can work together on the shared gas reserve, because in ASEAN, we also have some kind of collaboration that we call on the Trans-ASEAN gas pipeline, connecting the country in ASEAN together. And also we have the LNG receiving terminal that can also serve as the virtual pipeline and the virtual reserve on these. So in this case, we may need to have conduct the further study on the gas reserve mechanism with maybe some support from the international organization can help on this. And in short, why the cost of the gas reserve is quite challenging for the ASEAN, the regional cooperation and the international support could make it more affordable for the ASEAN and helping the ASEAN country to improve their energy security without putting too much burden on the economies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your point about the importance of regional cooperation, and also your point about potential help from the International Energy Agency is very well taken. So now that we have heard everyone's perspective about LNG supply security, let me actually take a quick second round around the panel and ask you a question that I'm especially keen to hear your views on, and that is the IEA's role in ensuring LNG supply security. As you all know, energy security is at the core of the IEA's mission, and we would like to hear from all stakeholders how we could actually contribute even further to this LNG security and gas supply security around the world. Now, we'll go in reverse order, so I ask you, each of you, to keep your answers relatively short, 1 minute or less. So, Mr. Hoysungwan, what more could we actually do to help the ASEAN region to achieve more energy security?
Yep, I think this is would be very helpful if we can get more support, especially from the IEA on this part. There are many options that would be possible. Maybe I propose a quick one, that for the first one about the market information, that the IEA maybe can share on the data on the LNG production, the storage, the price, and global demand and supply in the more timely manner that would help the government and the companies make the better decision on this part. And the second one may be encouraging on the cooperation that I think many of the panelists already mentioned about this, to foster international collaboration between the LNG importing and exporting countries to ensure more stable and flexible supply for these. And the third one may be a thing about the promoting on the natural gas and LNG reserve. And for this, I think IEA can also create on the strategic LNG reserve, quite similar to the oil reserve that have in place already. This is also another one. And the last one that I would like to point out is about the improve on the crisis response. So I think this is something that we can learn from the oil crisis management and apply into the natural gas and the LNG crisis management. Thank you.
Thank you. Quite a comprehensive and ambitious list, I would say. Thank you. Ms. Yao, your perspective on the IEA's role.
I think we can already see the progress in energy security through dialogue between stakeholders. And today's panel discussion is part of this. And I would like to thank the government and the IEA for this, for their effort. And we also welcome the expansion of the IEA's role in gas and LNG, which has a great deal of experience and knowledge in oil sector already. And then it is necessary for the diverse stakeholders participating in this conference, including governments, international organizations, consumers, and producers, to recognize the issues and potential of LNG and cooperate so that LNG can continue to play a major role.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nishizawa, what do you think the IEA could do, and more broadly the public sector could contribute to LNG supply security?
Yeah, obviously the study on the gas reserve mechanism we talked about is the a good example what IEA and MEDI can work together and IEA initiate. But maybe one thing I'd like to mention, I'd like to note is the for the what IEA can do and what the mechanism we can do. Maybe we need to actually recognize the difference between the case for the oil, which you have already established the strategic reserve mechanism. But LNG is the different with different nature. So such difference in the nature of the commodity itself and actually the physical molecule itself, that's the very important thing to take into account. Also, the another important thing is the difference between the regions. So in terms of the infrastructure in the Europe and the US is very different from the many countries in Asia, including Japan. So paying attention on such difference in terms of the broad context for the LNG is very important note. And in such sense, here making a good discussion, good study on what we can do as the international community, what IEA can do for ensuring the stable energy supply. So anyway, maybe starting from the such study and the research and good discussion, international discussion, reflecting the each specific context and the difference among the regions. That may be a very important thing to consider.
Thank you very much. Mr. Faruqi, what could we do more to enhance LNG supply security in the market?
Yeah, thank you. I typed out a few things. So we at Shell see IEA helping in multiple areas, analysis, dialogue, and insights on policy and security. So let me explain. So we see IEA as a key organization at the center of global dialogue on energy, providing authoritative analysis, data, policy recommendations, and real-world solutions to help countries provide secure and sustainable energy for all. I think this transparency is crucial, and IEA plays a pivotal role in doing that. I think we alluded to it earlier. It's whether the analysis on current and future risks for oil supply disruption that you guys publish, emerging gas security challenges, and increasing system flexibility and resilience of the electricity sector. The IEA has an important role to play in ensuring global energy security. Your report on closer dialogue between gas producers and consumers is a case in point. It helps industry participants and key stakeholders in the gas and LNG value chains to better understand and anticipate emerging trends and how to then manage for them. I think most important point, we talked about energy security. Today, IEA has a leading role in the implementation of global energy transition as well. We need IEA's support in encouraging investment in gas supply so that it can play a role as a reliable energy source as the world transitions to a cleaner energy future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Mr. Baldwin, your take on the IEA's role in this.
Well, thank you very much. I can be relatively brief because I agree with what everyone has already said. So 3 quick points, if I may. Firstly, I mean, really to pay tribute to Fatih Birol and team for making the IEA an indispensable partner in terms of what we're all trying to achieve, leading the way to a pragmatic but results-based energy transition. I think that's what we have to do. We have to understand. And so all the points you made about the role that you're playing as an analyst, but I would also say as a pressure group, a fair but frank and fearless interlocutor in terms of telling governments and companies what sometimes they don't always want to hear, but you do it very well. So what more can you do? Well, keep doing what you're doing. Develop the presence on the ground a bit more. I think we're very happy to see the IEA a lot in Europe. I understand you're opening, in fact, a regional office in Singapore in the next couple of weeks. I think that's a great thing, and making the IEA really a global presence is going to be super important. And then thirdly, to take some existing ideas and make them bigger and better. So we've got this task force on gas and clean fuels, market monitoring and supply security. And I'm glad to say the acronym is relatively short. It's TFFS, which we launched in 2022 under the IEA. And it's been a great forum for discussion on all the issues around security of supply. We and the Japanese and others have had a lot of really great exchanges over the last year. And so our suggestion would be, I touched on it in my remarks earlier, is to try to bring this more concretely into the IEA's framework, i.e. global gas, LNG security of supply issues, absolutely concretely, specifically. So to build into the institutional framework, the monitoring of the state of the gas markets and assessing security of supply, reducing our global vulnerability and our regional vulnerability to gas supply disruption, emergency planning and coordination, system integration and energy security benefits of low emission gas. All of the things we've touched on, I think, already this morning. Build those into the infrastructure. And I mention all this because I believe the governing board meets in a couple of weeks, and let's see if we can't take this further. I think you can expect our support for such an institutional reform. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baldwin, and special thanks for your kind words about the work we are doing. Unfortunately, this brings us to the end of this session. Please join me in thanking our speakers for their excellent contributions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Loss and the panelists. Let's have another round of applause. This concludes the panel discussion 1.